Former Guatemalan dictator Efrain Rios Montt has been sentenced to 80 years in prison. He was found guilty Friday of genocide and crimes against humanity. The charges stem from the deaths of more than 1,700 indigenous Mayans during his rule in the early 1980s. Rios Montt, who is 86, says he's innocent.
After 36 years of civil war in which 200,000 people were killed, few thought this moment would come. The former military leader of Guatemala, Efrain Rios Montt, in court to hear his sentence on charges of genocide and crimes against humanity. In court too, some of the thousands of victims, members of the Ichchil ethnic group, who day after day had testified over the rape, torture and murder the military had inflicted on them and their families during Rios Montt's time in power.
Efrain Rios Montt es responsable como autor del delito de genocidio.
When finally the judge issued her findings, they were unequivocal. Rios Montt had overseen genocide in Guatemala and had done nothing to prevent it. To cheers from the human rights campaigners in court, Judge Barrios sentenced the former military leader to 80 years in prison, 50 for genocide, 30 for crimes against humanity.
Family and supporters of the victims cheered when the sentence was handed down. An emotional relative of one of those killed said she knows that with this sentence the pain is not going to be erased, but it guarantees that the atrocities carried out by the army can't happen again. I'm happy about that, she said. I don't know if this is real happiness, but at least I'll be able to tell my brother that he can rest in peace and that his executioner is going to jail. Leaving the courtroom, Rios Montt denied any involvement in the massacres, described the trial as a political show and launched an appeal.
The trial, which lasted almost 2 months, saw victims give horrific accounts of the abuse carried out by Rios Montt's soldiers. Prosecutors say he was in power during the most violent chapter of Guatemala's civil war and willfully ignored the crimes, including rape and torture, which were perpetrated by his troops.
Rios Montt's supporters say his actions aren't war crimes, but those of a leader in the midst of a civil war. By the time Rios Montt took power in a coup in March of 1982, the government had been at war with leftist groups for 22 years. But during his 17 months in power, the fighting intensified and an estimated 80,000 people were killed. The war finally ended in 1996, and forensic experts are still unearthing the remains of victims. In all, 200,000 people were killed. Forensic anthropologist Freddie Pecciarelli was a witness for the prosecution.
It makes me very proud that what we saw in all of those graves throughout all of those years was understood and interpreted properly by these judges.
Many Guatemalans see this trial as a test for a weak justice system. Others consider it an uncomfortable reminder of the past. The current president, Otto Perez, served as an army officer in the war. During the trial, a former soldier testified, saying Perez ordered the burning of villages. Perez denied this and has said the trial threatened to destabilize the country. But that might be something he needs to get used to. As Judge Barrios concluded her ruling, she pushed for investigators to open up more cases, perhaps putting Guatemala on a path toward reconciliation of a violent history.